what I'm about to say is considered modern knowledge. The Sagittarius A constellation, Sag A constellation, is the galactic core. It's this point in space where the sun is rotating around. All right? Sagittarius A. And in that particular constellation, there's 16 stars, 16, that are revolving around, they don't know what. They started using words like black holes to help them understand what it was. Got it? What's interesting about that 16, for those of you who might be initiated into Ifa or other practices in West Africa, you know that if you use the cowrie shells as a divination system, there are 16 that are used. And it's a binary system, you know. If the shell is facing up and the shell is facing down, it means certain things, and we call these Odu. Okay? So you throw the 16, and they give you ancestral communication. That is what you call biomimicry. And this is what these brothers have talked about. That's a ritual that's taking place in the universe on a consistent practice where these stars are revolving around this what. And we knew about it, so we took it. And biomimicry is a new word. Let me put it up. But it's not a new concept. Biomimicry is, we look at something in the universe or in nature, and then we reproduce it to get something out of it. An example of this is, there was a little white boy who wanted to develop a solar technology. So he made his paneling on his stem mimic a tree or a plant. And he did his best to get the angles and everything in. And what they found out from his experiment is he was able to generate more energy from that little thing that they were using for all these solar panels. And it was because of the angles and the way that he generated the instrument to reflect the plant. That's pretty smart. You start following nature and you start getting more energy. All right, I'm going somewhere with this conversation, so just follow me. So, the Sagittarius A galactic core is known. The ESON telescope has been studying it. They was trying to see if it was going to swallow something, and, you know, a few years ago, and there's a whole discussion, but they've been watching it for quite a while. And Carl Jansky is the scientist who first used radio waves and other measurable ways, telescopic ways, to see that the sun is doing all these things. All right, so that was known. I can show you in the 53rd surah of the Quran the same discussion, where the Moorish or the Islamic calendar system is being discussed, and it mentions a star. At that time that was called SHRA, which is the plural of Sirius. This is in the 53rd surah, 49th verse. And Allah is called the Rab al-Shira, the Lord of Sirius. But this is what you call a broken plural. The aleph at the end is indicating multiple stars. Got it? The multiple nature of the Sirius star system was learned about in the 20th century in the United States of America. 20th century, 1900s. And they learned additional information when two German anthropologists went into Mali and did a study amongst the Kita or the Dogon in the 30s, and they got additional information to say it was a third star there. The people in Mali, the Dogon, and the Moors already knew that. How did they get it? And according to this surah, the study of the astronomy was called Sidrat al-Muntaha. Sidrat al-Muntaha is a word that is probably more used from the Quran amongst Sufis because it's the study of the sacred tree. That's what the word generally means. The sacred tree. All right, and the Sidrat al-Muntaha is what Muhammad was alleged to ascend to learn his divine knowledge. All right? But when you get to the core of it, it was astronomy, was how he learned his divine knowledge. That's where I'm going. He used astronomy to learn his divine knowledge. And he came, according to the SHRA, 2 bow lengths away from the source. Bow lengths is the language of it I'm trying to get to was Sagittarius. The sign of Sagittarius is a man who is a what? Minotaur holding a bow. Okay? So they're giving you astronomy. They're giving you Sirius, they're giving you Sagittarius constellation, and they're giving you how he was able to tap into revelation. So let's de-spook this real quick. I'm walking into you to de-spook, and I'm using conventional crazy religion. Crazy religion, because religion is crazy. You won't get no crazy than religion. Niggas will blow you up. Because you disagree with it. That's a crazy nigga. Now, it might be just if he's blowing you up because you blowing him up. Okay, I got that. I'm not against that. You blowing me up, I'm going to blow you up. But if you don't believe in my God, I'm going to blow you up. That's deep. But my point is, those people who are doing that ain't never had a class like this. They don't get classes like this. So it means they're reading the book every day and they don't even know what's in it. Check, because they didn't write it. Only people who are going to know what's in it are the people who wrote it. All right? We wrote it. So I'm giving you 3 things. Now, the reason why this is important is because the argument amongst my artists, I call them my artists, and this is not you if you study Kemet for traditional culture for the rise of black people. That's not a my artist. That's somebody who loves their culture. A my artist is somebody who's faking it. They're faking it. And the key that they're faking it is they're always disagreeable. And they always want, and then you got the same thing in other groups, Islamicists. In their way, they'll look at Kemet and say, you idol worshiping niggas, y'all going to hell. Can't wait till the day of judgment. And then my ass is looking at him like, you're crazy. Arab, worshiping fool. Come back home. We don't deal with no Quran, no Islam. We don't deal with that. Neither one of them know what they're talking about. They don't. Absolutely do not know what I'm going to prove it. I'm starting the proof of it right now with the Islamicists. Because they can't have this conversation with you, and they can't refute what I'm saying. Anybody got Qurans? Open them up, Google, pop up. Every piece of information is exactly where I'm saying it is. All right? And you'll find it as I'm talking. All right? This is a good thing we got technology now. So, you know, if this was the 30s, you have to wait 3, go to the rare library and try to figure out what I'm saying. You can look it up right now. And I'm waiting on somebody to say, oh, no, that part right there is off. And if it is, we'll correct it. I don't have a problem with that. Okay, so follow me in my thinking. Let's go back. Astronomy, we're walking ourselves through. SHRA 53 gives a star. In the beginning, it's talking about a star that is setting in the first 2 verses. The star that is setting, and then it gives the name of the star in the 49th surah, 49th verse. And the first 10 verses deal with Muhammad's connection to whoever is teaching him. All right? Which in conventional Islamic history is Malak. The Malaikat, which is translated as angels, which is not a really good translation. All right, because they just elevated human beings. That's all. Okay. So, this study of astronomy, going back to our original premise on God, we can point to the place and space that's moving everything that we can see. That's my point. We don't have to argue about that. If something happened at that point, the sun would stop working. But that point in space, and you can look it up as I'm going, and I'm going to see if I can pull this up as I'm going. Let's go into the presentation. All right, look at fact check. All right. 1, an eternal force that makes all things submit to it, that has actual spatial coordinates of right ascension and declination. Right ascension and declination are how you chart something in space. It's just astronomical terms. Was described by Muhammad. And I gave the actual coordinates of it. So if you're on a telescope, online or whatever, you can look at this point in space. If you go to a planetarium If you go online to Google telescopes, whatever, you can actually see this, so you won't think I'm making this up. And you can write down those, and even if you go to a planetarium, they can give you an aide who will say, yeah, we can point the telescope at this particular place and you look at it. And then he'll start telling you what I'm telling you. Okay, yeah, this is the Sagittarius A galactic core, blah, 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 blah. Okay? All right, so this, my point of contention is this is what Surah 53 of the Quran is talking about. That's where I'm going with it. All right, so is everybody writing that down or screenshotting that so you can see it? Because I'm going to kind of move kind of quickly. Yeah, minus 29 degrees. That's the declination point. That's below the equator point. Yeah, the spatial equator. All right, so this is a depiction of what we have here, and right here is our little solar system. Okay, and we are going around in a clockwise direction, which is to our what? Opposite of left. Had to come back to that. Brother was right. We're doing a ritual right. We go in the opposite of left. We actually are physically riding the opposite of left. But our revolution is going this way. And that's there so it can generate a certain amount of energy. But anyway, what the Moors call this is Arsh al-Istawa. Arsh al-Istawa is, Arsh means throne, and Istawa means power. If we have some water here, I need some water, because I've been talking for a long time, and you can see my voice is almost gone. All right, I need some cheap. I'm losing it. All right, so Arsh al-Istawa means throne of power. Right? That sounds spooky, right? Arsh is where we get the terms connective linguistically, if you've ever heard of the term Orisha. Right? You heard that term? Orisha. Let me write it down. Thank you. Let me write it down. These two terms are connected. Let's write it down. Anybody know what an Orisha is?
Isn't it like a spirit? A spirit of some sort?
Orisha. Anybody know what an Orisha is? A spiritual force in the Ifa tradition. All right? And you have different Orisha. Can anybody name any Orisha? Shango. Obata. Ogun. All right. Now, my contention with that group is most of them don't know what those spiritual forces actually were according to original initiation. And if you read the initiation, you can see cross comparisons in other systems and you can begin to understand what they are. Most of them are relegated to astronomical bodies, which actually generate your spirit force. When you're born on this planet, and this Earth is interacting with these other planets, it generates force in relationship to that planet. So we are associated with Jupiter, the Sun, the Moon, these stars I'm talking about. We are connected to these things. Gravitation is magnetic force, and there's connection to that, all right? And it's measurable. But how we did it, how we made it measurable, was through right brain systems. All right, we developed what's called right brain systems. Right brain systems are a little bit different than the technical astronomy. So we now call it astrology, which is a bad name to call it, but that's a right brain system where you get into using those energies to relate them to your own psychology, your own makeup. Okay? So you have Arsh and Orisha. Right? These mean the same thing. And Arsh is a throne. A throne is where what? A ruler sits. What are the planets called? Rulers in astrology. Such and such rules such and such. If you take this word and take the root words, consonantal vowel, consonant, consonant, and you flip it around, this is just me just going side. This is my sidebar. This is not science. But we do this. We do this in a certain way. You have SHRA. Isn't that the word I just put up here? They're connected. All right? It's a mirror. So, the ancient Egyptians used this star and this system in the temples of Sin-Mut to calculate. And anybody who knows a little bit about astronomy in Egypt, they probably know more about this one than the other ones. Because the Nile, the raising of the Nile was based on the annual rising of Sirius. Right? But we have, my point is, we can identify the point in space. Now, the only thing that we can tell right now about this point in space that's making everything in the universe that we know of move. How would you think about that? You want to say, if you ask me where your power comes from, I can point to this and say, yeah, all the power comes through this, filtered through these local stars, to your planet, through the vegetation, and the air, and the sunlight to you, so you can exist. I'm going to say that again, I'm going to slow it down, so you can get this. This point in space is moving your sun. Your sun is revolving around this point in space. And your sun, by having that energy distributed to it, can now distribute it to each and every one of your planets, including the one that you're on, and by the distribution of that solar energy, Ra, the ancestor, right? You have everything growing, having the ability to have energy and move. No sun, no local entity to distribute that that energy. So when you look at the systems in traditional cultures, the sun god or goddess or ancestor became very important. Almost to the point of when other people who weren't aware of the system, they would think that we worship the sun. Right? But we did that because we understood the system. They weren't insiders, they were outsiders looking in.